welcome to another episode of Unscripted with Marilyn Morales. Today I am wearing my Puerto Rico shirt, and there is a reason for that. I have a guest today who can speak on the Latina experience from the time that we grew up, because she and I are around the same age, similar experiences, and she happens to be of Puerto Rican descent, just like I am. So I wanted to bring a little bit of that flavor to the show as well. Because I think it's a subject that we don't get to talk about. And that experience of being Latina in this age of our lives colors a lot of what we do. And I think it's an important subject that I would love to discuss. So Ivy Perez is my guest, and she is an absolute wonderful, well-rounded woman that I have been so impressed with since I met her. Ivy Perez is a mom, a marathoner, and triathlete. Right there, she's got me because I can't even walk across the street. Okay. She is a certified DreamBuilder Coach and a best-selling co-author in 2 books, Spiritual Fitness Survivor and Conversations with the Divine. Being a published co-author has been a catalyst and an incredible journey for Ivy because she shares her story of alcohol abuse. And although 5 years free from what she calls alcohol's grip on my life, there's a story she hasn't shared, and that is of her breast cancer journey. Today, we're going to hear her story and her journey, what she has incorporated into her life to help her heal, move forward, and thrive. One of Ivy's motto is never look in the rearview mirror because life happens only when you look forward. Let's welcome Ivy to the show. Hello.
Hi.
Incredible bio. I am so impressed by you. Since the day that I met you, I am in awe of your physical capabilities, especially at our age. I happen to be a year older than Ivy, but I can't even imagine, like I just said, I literally sometimes can't even just walk a regular walk. I try to walk around and it's very taxing to me. And you're doing all these wonderful things. And I think they were just recent too. I remember hearing this is not something that you've been doing your whole life. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I've always been, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. This is going to be fun. I know it. I've always been relatively active. I think for me, as a child growing up, observing family, and no one was really healthy.
Let's speak truth.
And even
Latin
the foods,
the foods that we eat. Yes, go ahead.
It was, in oil and all these things. So even at a young age, I knew without being able to verbalize that it wasn't healthy, but it's just what we ate. It was a lot of carbs and fried foods and things like that. But I also observed some cousins where when they were young, maybe they were 5, 10, 15 years older, they were in great shape. Not necessarily because they were working out. They just look good because I guess when you're young, you're thinner for the most part. But then they let themselves go. And I noticed that so much. People in general let themselves go. And it would just blow me away. Like, how can you be, we'll just use simple math, 100. And now you're almost 200. Like, I don't know. That just blew me away. So I just always was one that was mindful about working out. I would do Jane Fonda tapes in my room.
Oh my God, Jane
Fonda.
Yes.
I would plug in the VHS. Either in the morning or sometimes after school or after work. I was living at home up until I was 30. I would plug in the tape and I'm jumping around and my mom would come in. It's so funny. She'd come in with a glass of wine if it's in the evening or late afternoon. She goes, "Go ahead, Mama, you work out." And I'll sit
you go, girl.
No, like, Mom, why don't you join me? But no, some people have it in them to want to do something, even if it's walking. And that's one of the main things I talk about all the time. Just start with a walk. Just walk. It's low impact. It's easy. Right. Just get out and walk. And that it builds. I mean, you build your leg muscles and you just feel good and you're outdoors and all these things. But yeah, I would run. And then it wasn't until I was but I was always doing something in school. So maybe it was track and field when I was younger. When I got into college, I did tennis. I did tennis, but because when I was younger, we moved about every 3 years. So I've went through a lot of school. So it was always the stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. Start something and then you have to, end it. That was like my MO throughout life. So I go to school and I try something for like a year and then that was out. And then I go to another school, try something that's out. And that was just something I carried through my life. It was a learned thing, not that it was like taught to me, like directly, but I learned how to stop and go. So I did that with jobs every few years. I just kind of got this bug in me, like, I'm good. I think I want to do something else. Relationships, after a couple of years, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. You're out. And I just keep on going.
It's like you're bored.
But that was it. And it wasn't until my 30s when I came across someone that was talking about doing a marathon, but also raising money for abused and neglected kids. And this was just in passing. I was actually working in a restaurant as a waitress at the time. And I walked by, I overheard, I was like, hi, you don't know me, but can you tell me more about this? And then we became friends. He told me about it. And I raised money. It was called Child Help USA. They're out of Arizona. And that's where I was living at the time. And I ran my first marathon in Monaco, France.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
incredible.
That was very cool. It was a cool experience. Yeah.
So you were in your 30s when you did your first one.
Yeah, I think I might have been about 33, my first marathon.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I tell you, I have always been, and this is funny, right? Because when we talk about being Latin, right? And I was always very thin, right? And which is not your typical Latin look, right? So when you look at your cousins who are full bodied, right? And that is supposed to be the way you look and you don't look like that, then you feel bad about yourself because I was always so thin. Even up to the time I got married at 25, I was 90 pounds soaking wet,
Yes.
No matter how much I ate, it just didn't stick, right? So
Same.
Yeah, so the other side of the spectrum is not feeling a part of the culture because you don't fit the stereotypical profile of it, right? So that you're looked at differently by them as well, right? Not in a positive way because you don't look that way either.
Yes.
Yet then everybody now, the tides have changed when now they were trying to look like that, and I wish I could look like that now, but after 4 children and metabolism and menopause, hey,
exactly.
Can't go back. But you can still try. I just say that I try walking, as you say, right? Because if I have knee issues and things like that, but walking is a low impact, doesn't harm as much. Bike riding is another thing that I like to do. Get outside and do that. So that works too. But in your journey with, and we talked a little bit off camera about being Latin and that experience. Talk to me a little bit about that. You talked about the foods and they're not being healthy. Were you able to find healthy alternatives to our same typical foods?
It wasn't really it's so interesting. So growing up, it wasn't something where we had conversation. We sat around the table and we talked, we communicated. It was just, it's kind of like, be quiet, go over there, mind your own business kind of thing. So I didn't know how to ask questions because I felt like if I ask a question, I'm bothering, like mind your own business kind of thing. So I never asked if there were alternatives to anyone, not about the family, even like at work, maybe asking someone do you eat anything? I just didn't have the wherewithal to do that. So I just kind of went about life and I accepted whatever was there. So I didn't look to alternatives, but I do remember at one point, my mom said something about wanting to cook, not in lard and oil and things like that. And I was
Crisco.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Crisco. It was like the first time that my mom just wanted to kind of do something a little different, a little healthier. So that was kind of I guess a seed that was planted. But as far as eating healthy, I don't know. I guess it was, I love food and I always try different things. And, I had because we didn't grow up, or I didn't grow up in a predominantly Spanish area, I tried a lot of different foods. So it was just kind of like, honestly, my first like buffalo wings, I was 21. Like chicken fingers, buffalo wings, I was 21. But it was right around that age in my 20s when I was, being open to different foods.
Experimenting to outside foods.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say
Yeah.
similar. I don't think I tried, now that you're saying that, I don't remember trying any of that until I was older. Right.
Yes.
But I also remember my mother talking about, when they lived in Puerto Rico. Right. So I'm first generation born in New York City. Right. So in Puerto Rico, the foods were not like this because they grew their own stuff. So she was big thing for being healthy because she didn't like all the canned stuff. Right. She was like, this is not good for you. This is not healthy. And she'd make sure that she prepared food for us and didn't like the Chef Boyardees and those kind of canned stuff.
Good. That's good.
She didn't like it. So she would find her own variations. I can make one better. Like she didn't like McDonald's, right? You always wanted to go to McDonald's. And I remember funny because a lot of us from New York City were hearing the same thing. We're all born in New York, right? So our parents are all coming from there. And they were like, you don't want that. I can make a burger better than McDonald's.
That was a treat. McDonald's when I was young it was a treat. When we were going to like the beach and it was a road trip, going to McDonald's for breakfast, it was like
not even for us. My mother would cook the chicken with the rice and everything, and it was brought to the beach like that. Because and then back then, as you're a kid, you're like, I want what everybody else is eating. I don't want this stuff.
Yes.
But she was actually doing the right thing.
Yeah. Because then you feel different, And
not only that, it feeds into illness, right? So the best thing to stay away from illness is prevention. It's not putting it in your body to begin with. And what we saw with those of us from my generation growing up with all that bad stuff is an increase in the cancers, in the high blood pressures and obesity and all those things, right? So I know we have a story to talk about, and I want you to share about your cancer journey and anything that you can think of also that you feel contributed to that, because there's so many factors to illness. So talk to me about that.
That's a great question. And the part where you said what contributed to it, when I was diagnosed, so I think I was 41. And it was interesting because I was in the process of going into the military at that age, at 40. Yes, it was a fork in the road in my late 30s. But, that comes from, the stop and go in my life and the always moving. I didn't have a dad. He left when I was, I think, 6 or 8 years old. So it was only my mom. She was only working. I was the oldest of 3. I was the latchkey kid. I had no one to look to. I was just kind of, floundering. And, alcohol came into play really at college, but the first time it crossed my path was at 10. But there was like things that happened in my childhood that, you don't realize it at the time. So whether it's a trauma or abuse, it's, you repress it.
Right.
You repress it. You're afraid to say something, depending on your family dynamics. So would I have loved to have said something? Yes, but I knew I couldn't because I just knew I couldn't. So I just kept it to myself. And you go about life. But things manifest in ways that you don't realize why things manifest. So for me, it was the drinking, but it wasn't a conscious thing. It was more like, the drinking was like, it felt good. I was having a good time, but it was the sense of feeling free. And if anyone is dealing with any addiction, it's kind of like this sense of just not feeling. And sometimes you don't even realize that there's stuff that you are holding on to. And then when you intake whatever that is, it's kind of like this, I feel better. I don't have to think about anything. I just feel free and light and no worries kind of thing. So in college, and again, it wasn't conscious, but the drinking was fun. And that's all it was. It was fun. There was a lot of debauchery in college, but I thought that was the way everybody drank. You drank to
Right.
excess, you blacked out, you laughed about it the next day, and life goes on. And so I continued that 20s, 30s, even into my 40s, up until
Wow.
I was diagnosed. But in my 30s, it got progressively worse. And I remember one time, and I don't watch news anymore, but I remember watching the news one day. It was Janine Pirro. I don't even think she's practicing. I think she had a show. She has a book, which I didn't buy, but she had said that alcoholism is progressive. It just gets worse, even if you try to control it or whatever. So that for me was just kind of like, oh, I need to stop. But I didn't know how. I didn't know how to stop it. So anyway, so that was a thorn in my side, the drinking for decades. But with regard to the breast cancer, which is interesting. So in my late 30s, coming to a fork in the road, it was actually because of an accident. And no one got hurt, thank God. But because of it, it was when I started to ask, okay, what's going on here? Because the way I'm going is not good. I'm like making it's even deeper than errors in judgment. I was putting myself in situations that were dangerous. You
Yeah.
know, I was driving that I should not have been behind the wheel. And I always would say, I have angels around me. I have
Mhm.
angels, but I would also immediately say, but one of these days the angels are going to stop. They can't protect me all the time until I learn. I just knew it. I just knew it. And then one day that was the day. And thank God no one got hurt. But that's when I started to really ask God, like, okay, why am I here? Because this is not good. And it was at that time that I started to want to do personal development. Although it wasn't personal development, I just wanted to figure out, why do I do what I do?
What was different about you, right? So it sounds like this accident was no accident,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
It was meant to be for you to be able to get to the next level. And just
Yes.
to touch on the alcoholism, a lot of times you self-medicate to get rid of the anxiety
Hmm.
that you don't even know you have,
Hmm.
right? Because you couldn't
Hmm.
identify that as anxiety, but that's what you were going through. And it just felt better not to have that anxious feeling all the
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's move forward. So next, now we're looking at what's my purpose. We're in this accident, right? So in one day, everything changed for you, right?
Yeah, it did. And that's when I started to consciously want to figure me out. Why do I do what I do? Why do I continue to put myself in these situations that are not healthy for me or got anyone else for that matter? And so I just started doing the work. I still continue to drink because I just didn't know how to stop it. I
Stop it.
always I always tried to control it. I had so many different ways. Okay, well, if I go here, okay, just have, and it was a constant mental dialogue, constant, and it was exhausting. Where if I was going to a friend's house or meeting someone for happy hour, going out to dinner, I would tell myself, okay, Ivy, there's going to be alcohol. Okay, just have a glass of wine. Don't have anything else. Just have one. Sip it slowly. Okay, and then now I'm there and I'm observing everyone drinking and having a good time and just talking and taking a little sip and just having a conversation for like 20 minutes without even touching it. And I'm like focused on that. How do you take a sip and not continue to drink? Because a glass of wine, there's like a few gulps for me and I'm like done and ready for the next one. So I didn't understand. I thought, like, how do people do that? Like, how do people do that? So it was exhausting. And that went on for a long time. And then um, late 30s, that's when that accident happened. And I started to do some really deep soul searching and assessing. And when I was driving one day, a tap on the shoulder, like literally, I felt the tap on the shoulder that said law enforcement. So I'm driving and I'm like, are you kidding me? Law enforcement? I had a girlfriend in high school who wanted to be a cop. She would salivate when she would see a police officer in New York, a female. She's
Yeah.
like, that's going to be me. I'm like, good for you. That's it.
And
And she did. She became a
she
cop,
did it.
hired and everything.
Awesome.
So that was not me. But where was I going? That I lost my train of thought. So I felt the tap on the shoulder. So I was like, okay, I'll look into it. I looked into police. I looked into like government jobs. I looked into fingerprinting and all these things. And it led me to the military. And I was like, oh, I've always
Okay.
wanted to do the military. because in high school, I did Sea Cadets. It's kind of like a junior ROTC program. It was the
Yes,
Navy.
yes.
I did it for 4 years. So I was like, oh, I would love to do that. So I'm in Arizona at the time. So I go to it's called MEPS, Military Entrance Processing Station. And I walk in to the Navy office and I'm like, hi, I want to sign up.
You want to sign up?
But the guy
Did
was
they
not
look at you like you were crazy?
yes. And he wasn't really kind because I was 40. I think I was 40. And all he kept on focusing on was, because of your age, because of your age. And I'm like, mind you, I'm in shape. I run, I hike. I was hiking mountains all the time. I did marathons and all these things. I was in shape. So to me, it's just a number. I knew I felt good. I could do it kind of thing. But I was like, you know what? Thank you for your time. I got up. I walked across the hall. I went to the Army. But I knew that it was either Navy or Army. Marines was out. I think I could have joined the Air Force, but I didn't want to. And I think that was it. So Navy, Army. Yeah, that was it. No
So you
Coast Guard.
left.
I was in
You
Arizona.
left them. You went to the Army.
And of course,
Did they give you a hard time?
No, they were like so happy, like, come on in. And I started the process and I was going to go to officer candidate school. Went through the whole thing. At the time, I 2 jobs. So I was a realtor at the time in Arizona. It was towards the tail end where I knew I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was working for one of my clients and he was military, ironically. He was military, small business development. So my job for him was to go to military bases. It was basically business development and just build rapport with the small business contractors. So that was the thing. I did that for a year or so. I had gone to a big military event in Vegas. On the way back from Vegas, I wasn't even it was probably in my head because there was a woman there. I told her I was leaving in like a month or two. And she was older. I mean, I was in my late 30s. She might have been in her 60s. And it was the weirdest thing. She was like, no, Ivy, no. And I was like, whoa. And she was like, you would be such a service to the military doing what you're doing now, not going in. And I was like, okay. But I had already signed up. I was leaving. Right. And so on the plane back to Arizona, it's only like, I think an hour or so flight. As the pilot was saying, okay, we're coming into a landing, I wasn't even thinking about anything. And all of a sudden this wave was, and I was like, that was weird. And I was like, oh my God, I can't go. I can't go in. I got off the plane. I called my recruiter, sobbing. And he's like, what's wrong? And I told him, I said, I can't do it. He's like, why? I go, I don't know. I just can't do it. And he's like, why are you crying? I said, because I don't have a plan B. I sold everything. I got out of my lease to my apartment, sold all my furniture. I was living with a friend of mine just until I went in. Wow. Like I was done. I was like all my eggs going in the military. And now it's like, I don't have a plan B. So right around that time is when I came back home, back east. And
so they let you go without a problem. I didn't know that once you signed it, you could say, I don't want to go.
Well, I don't know what he had to deal with, but he told me, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Okay. So I come back east. My mom is living on Staten Island at the time. I come and now I have a pull to do this again. Now everybody thinks I'm crazy. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't explain it. All I know is like, I got to go through it again. This time was interesting. So I'm going through the process, same thing, but now, and it's just about a year later, my physical aspect of, training for this was a little different. It's just a year's time. Now I'm kind of noticing the clientele, if you will. So I'm like, they're all like 18, pimply faced, all these young kids. I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Right. But I signed, but I went through a big process, a bigger process than the first time around, because this time I had to interview with a captain in the Army. And so I told him my story, yada, yada. And he was like, all right. He goes, you know what? I'll allow you. He goes, but the military doesn't look too kindly on people who quit. He says, so if you quit again, he goes, I will blackball you from the military. I'm like, going to be 41. I'm like, okay. So I said, listen,
don't try this again.
Yeah. Now I'm like, and I told him, I was like, listen, I have no intentions of quitting. I am all in. And what's interesting is what came out of my mouth afterwards. I said, the only way that I don't go in is if something completely out of my control stops me. Why did that come out of my mouth? I do not know. And so I'm going through the process. I think it was about 2 months later, I get this little, I think he was Indian. His name was Dr. Raghu. I'll never forget. Mm-hmm. And as a female, you know, we had to get pap smears. And he's like, you know, you have to get a pap smear. I'm like, okay. He goes, no, you don't need pap smear. I'm like, dude, all right, relax. I'll get it. So I go. I had a female doctor. She was like, have you gotten a mammogram? And I'm like, no, I know I'm 40. And when you turn 40, you're supposed to, you know, that kind of thing. Because
wow. I can't believe you're going through, I'm right now, I'm just taken aback by the fact you're going through a military process at the age of 40.
I know. I do know people tell me you should write a book. I go, believe me when I tell you, I'm an encyclopedia.
It's coming. It's coming. The book's coming.
It is. I'm in the process of writing like 4. But
okay, good, because we need these books.
So here it is. She tells me, have you ever gotten a mammogram? I'm like, no, I know I need to. Now, I am not the person, the red flag comes up. It's like, why? Did you feel something? Is something wrong? That's not me. I'm like, all right. She goes, let me give you a prescription to get a mammogram. I said, okay, I'll go. I'm leaving in a month. So I go, and maybe it was 2 months at that time. And I go, the process, they find something. They were like, well, we just see some calcification, something. We just want to make sure. I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. I don't think, what's that? What's a calcification? I don't ask any questions. I don't ask questions. Right. So I'm like, okay, do what you need to do. Well, we're going to need a biopsy. Okay, whatever that is. Okay, fine. Military, I'm going in. So I do 2 separate biopsies. Then the second one, this is a crazy story. And I don't remember the doctor's name. I'm waiting in the room, and it's a narrow, thin room where it's just the bed or whatever you call it. And I think like 2 feet away is the countertop, and it's like really narrow room. So I'm waiting. Doctor comes in. She comes in, says nothing. She's looking at whatever. She stands catty corner to me. And I don't even remember. All I remember is sitting there thinking to myself, are you going to say something? Like it was like that weird silence. Like
she's about to tell you something. That's why, right?
I didn't know. I'm just like, okay, are you going to say something? And this is what she says to me. Yeah, this sucks that you have cancer right before Christmas. I kid you not, because I'll never forget those words.
What?
Mm-hmm. This sucks that you have cancer right before Christmas. Uh-huh. And so I just
was like, did she know you had cancer? Did she think that you knew?
I have no idea.
But that's how you found out. Those words.
That's how I found out.
Lord help me.
And then I was just kind of like, what? And then I don't remember anything after it.
Of course.
I just remember everything being surreal. It's like the movies where you see one person standing still and everything else is moving
around them. Yes.
That's how it was. And I remember getting on the bus and going home, and I'm just looking at everyone, and everyone is just going about their life. And I'm like, this is crazy. But I will say, I'm not the type of person that is like, why me? Oh God, why me? Why did you do this to me? I can't believe it. And then I was like, okay, but why me? Not why me in a victim kind of way. Just, okay.
What am I supposed to learn from this? What am I supposed to do with this?
Mm-hmm. So I don't remember specifically. I told my mom, I don't remember what her reaction was. I think she got a little emotional. Like my mom doesn't show emotion.
Okay.
So I think I saw like a little bit in her face, but I don't remember much. I have 2 sisters and a half brother. I know I told them, but I remember my younger sister, I was at her place and I pulled her aside and we went to the bathroom, closed the door. And I remember we're both leaning against the wall. And I don't know, I told her that I had breast cancer. And I remember her looking at me and she started to cry. She went, "Are you going to die?" And I went, "No, no." I was like, "No, no, 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 no. This is just something I have to go through. This is just something I have to go through." And then she's like, "Okay, okay." And I was like, wow, because that's the first thing people think of is death. Now, is it possible? See, the thing is it got caught early.
Thank God.
So I truly believe that this whole military thing that I went through and the reason why that I had this pull to go into it again a year later where it didn't make any sense was for me to get tested, to go through this journey so that I could be where I am today. And that's really just having my daughter. I truly believe that. I said it to her I said, "You don't even realize how much of a gift you are to me." Because whenever anyone said, "Are you going to have kids?" Or I'm like, no, I don't want kids because I was mom to my two younger sisters. I lost my childhood more ways than one. And I was like, no, no. And you know how women are pregnant? They go, "Oh, do you want to touch the belly?" I'm like, hell no.
No.
No, 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 no. It's like drinking the water. I am not touching the belly.
I am not going anywhere near you. As a matter of fact, could you please move? Get away from me.
But it's just interesting. And I always look at life that way. I always have. I'm not one to be like, "Oh, woe is me." It's like, okay, this is interesting. And even I went to a breast cancer support group. I didn't go many times, but initially I was just trying to do something. And I remember the women there, they were all older, probably 60s, 70s, maybe older. And some would say, "Well, I had breast cancer on one breast and, did it on one. I didn't want to do it on both. And then it came back." And I'm like, oh my God. I just did both. I just did the double mastectomy because I could. I didn't know insurance wise, like if you're able to, I don't know what the verbiage or term is, like something like asymmetrical. Like if you have it in one breast, you're able to do the double mastectomy, just more for symmetry purposes, I guess.
Symmetry purposes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did it. I mean, and my thoughts, and I'm just a goofball. See, here's my thought process. Got cancer. I get double mastectomy so I could get new boobs. Cancer out, new boobs. Sign me up.
I'm in.
But that's me. Again, not the woe is me. But
that's not your personality, right? So God gave you this personality that no matter the obstacle, the resilience was there, which a lot of people, when people talk about me and my resilience to things that have happened in my life, I say it's in my DNA. I always say that, right? Our ancestors went through some traumatic stuff, right? And those women, the ones that made it, were because of that extra chromosome, the resilient chromosome, that they then passed on to their daughters, right? And I said, that's my answer to that. It's not mine. I inherited it because I come from a long line of women who were resilient, who found a way, who didn't see an obstacle, but they said, okay, they saw a different perspective. Okay, I think I could go this way. I don't see obstacles, just like you're saying. I don't see that as an obstacle. I see that as just, I got to alter what I'm doing. I got to pivot. I'm pivoting and I'm going to go a different way. And I think I love that you shared that because it goes along with a lot of people that are like us, right? We pivot, right? We just pivot. We're just that way. We pivot and go. Yeah. And we listen, we go through things. So let's talk about, what do you think caused that? Cancer is something that is inside of us. And an oncologist shared with me, because of my daughter, because it was not genetically passed on, right? We did the genetic workup, and they say sometimes you're just born with this key, the cancer key, right? And something turns it on and goes full force. And we don't know what that is. Could be a multitude of things. What do you think was the key for you that led you there?
This is interesting because, I learned later on that everything happens twice. First in thought and then in physical form. So I didn't ask for cancer. But I remember in my 30s, when I was in the height of my drinking, I remember thinking, this is crazy. This is twofold. I remember thinking to myself, well, oh God, maybe if I was in a car accident or some kind of accident and I'm in the hospital with tubes everywhere, then maybe I'll have this aha, like the movies, where it's like, now I know what I'm supposed to do. Because I didn't know. I was just floundering. And it was 2 months after that when I got into the fender bender. But it was about a month or so after when I was like, oh my God, I asked for this.
Did you ask for it or just intuitive? Just like the download, the military, first in thought. Sometimes, and that can work in the positive way. We talk about manifestation, right? But it wasn't something like you were thinking about it. So manifestation works in, I want this thing and I can't stop thinking about this thing. So I'm going to draw this energy to me. When you talk about that fleeting moment that just comes to you, not that you were thinking of it,
right?
But it came to you, just like the download of military, just like the download of you can't go now, right? That was just, for me anyway, it's an intuitiveness that you have and you listen to it.
Yeah, a lot of things have come to me that I even had a friend of mine. He was a psychologist, and he was like, do you realize that these things that come to you, people pay thousands of dollars to get, and it just comes to you? And I'm like, so, but that was like for something else. But yeah, things
Think
come
and
to
Grow
me.
Rich.
So that was one.
That book, Think and Grow Rich, right? It talks about this kind of intuitiveness, right?
Yes.
That if you act on it, it's going to guide you the right way.
Yeah.
And if we don't act on it, this happens to everybody multiple times a day. It's just some people are extra sensitive to it. Some people pay attention to it and other people just put it to the side.
And that's it. It's the paying attention. It's kind of like, But I think, it was kind of, I paid attention a little bit. And then sometimes, just like anything else, you're like, really? Nah. But no, I think I try to pay attention when things come to me. Just like this year with a 40-day fast that came to me, but that's something separate. So that was one, the fender bender, when I was, prior to thinking, oh, maybe if I'm in a car accident, and all these tubes. So now fast forward, I think just a couple of years, now I have breast cancer. Now I am in the hospital and I do have tubes in me. And the journey was like a good year and a half. So I go through the process of the double mastectomy. I've got tubes coming out of me. So there's the drains that I have to deal with. Then I had an infection, a cellulitis. Oh, that was awful.
Yeah,
so I had cellulitis. So for anyone who knows of someone or you went through this with breast cancer, they have what's called expanders. So they remove all the tissue from you. So now you're flat, but you have to let it heal. But it heals it's like scar tissue. So now they put expanders in, and then little by little, they just add a few millimeters of saline or whatever, just to expand and stretch the skin. But it's your job to massage it and massage it and massage it to soften up the scar tissue. So I would do that. And it got to a point where it's like, normal size. And then I developed the infection, and it was really bad. So they had to remove it and and that was like another 6 months. And I went through radiation and all these things. But then I'm like joking every time I go in the hospital and I'm talking to the doctors and the nurses. I'm just, this is me. What you see, this is me, and even like during the time when I had the infection, I would put a sock in my bra. So I had one that was normal, and then I would put a sock in the other to kind of like whatever. And then sometimes I would joke with people and just pull out the sock, and just the people like, whoa, what are you doing? I'm like, it's what I'm going through right now. I just made light of it. Right. It's just something I was going through. I didn't want it to be heavy. It's just, we all go through something. We all go through stuff. We all get through it, but it's how we get through it that will determine the outcome of how we move forward in this life. I mean, we can focus we totally could focus, and a lot of people do, on the woe is me and why did this happen to me and he did this and she did this and well, my childhood was this, and we all have something that happened in our childhood, everybody. But when you focus, like looking in the rearview mirror, you can't move forward. You just
That's
can't.
right.
And you
That's right.
diminish and muddle your present. And so
And,
just
and you've always had that mindset, right? It seems like
always.
you've always looked forward, because a lot of times they talk about, when you talk about cancer, especially with the breasts or with uterine and ovarian, that sometimes past traumas, right? Some people are victims of sexual traumas and things like that. It'll manifest itself in those particular organs.
Yes. Yes. And for me, I do believe that. And there's a gentleman, Vander Kolk. He has a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's a really good book. And it talks a lot about that. Initially, when he started his journey, it was dealing with Vietnam veterans. But then he's realizing that, you know, with any kind of trauma and abuse, the body does keep the score. Hold on to it until you work through it. And even though I was on this journey of, you know, working through not trauma, because I wasn't even thinking trauma, although I knew it. I knew why I was drinking. I got to a point where I realized why I was drinking. I was very angry, but I didn't show it. You know, that's just, but inside I was angry. I was angry at men for, you know, they were supposed to be my protectors and, you know, they weren't. And, and so I took that out on relationships, and I would self-sabotage relationships all the time. It was more like, I will hurt you before you hurt me. That kind of thing. I didn't verbalize it, but I felt it. And I even had a friend that said, why do you hate men so much? I'm like, no, I don't, but I guess they saw something in me, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the manifestation of the breast cancer, it you know, alcohol plays a significant role.
All of that. Yeah, all of that.
Huge.
It was just unresolved trauma. But I love how you share that perspective is it's a tool in the toolbox in order for you to move forward with whatever is happening. It's how you look at it, not what's happening to you, but the way that you look at what's happening to you, so that you can then make choices based on that perspective. So love it, because you completely embody everything I've always said about traumas and getting through them. It's just change your perspective. It can change your life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So Ivy, this is a question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, how do you define success?
How do I define success? You know, it's a loaded question.
It is.
And success means different things to different people. And I do understand that when you are just moving forward in your life and you're focusing on being present in the moment, and also focusing on what you could do better for you, your family, just your community, and moving forward, that's success. But success for me personally, and I wanted to show you this because I just did this recently. There's the 10 life domains. And in our space, we know this, but a lot of people don't know this. We have 10 life domains. There's spirituality, health, career, finances, family, friends, all these things. Do we know where we are? And a lot of times we don't, because people don't have the wherewithal to ask themselves the deep question, like, okay, you know, you're in a place where maybe the finances aren't good. You know, you're in a place where maybe the relationships aren't good, but what are you doing to be more aware of where you are? And what are you doing to move the needle in that area in your life? And so I did this recently. And I'm showing my stuff. So here's like this one right here, my finances, that's in my circle. So think of a wheel, like a bicycle. Obviously you want it to be, wait, my finger. Yeah. You want it to be kind of like a full circle.
Right.
And mine is kind of like, so if this was a bicycle, I would not get far. So I'm working on it. So these are, and anyone can download this. It's called the 10 Life Domains. And it really is good, but there's two things that I want to say about that. One, downloading that is really powerful so you can see it. Mark, you know, it's from 0 to 10, mark where you are right now. And then also mark where you want to be maybe in the next quarter, the next 6 months, the next year. That's where I kind of colored it. But then here's the key, and this is a key for me personally that I did not know, and you don't know what you don't know, but when you know, you teach better, you do better, you share, and all these things. It's the action. What are you going to do to move the needle? So for me, and I've said this in other places where I thought growing up, because I didn't have support, I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have a parent, nothing against my mom. She did the best she could with what she had, but I didn't have someone teaching me. One, asking questions is a good thing. You get your answers. You know, what do you want to do with your life? Like, where do you see yourself in a couple of years? Like, whenever that question was asked when I went for an interview, it made me angry because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing next week. In 3 years from now, I have no idea, until I grew. You know, you grow. So the next best thing to do for this in the life domains is to mark where you are, mark where you want to be, but then in a separate piece of paper, put all those domains and what is it that you're going to do? Just do one thing. What can I do? Just one thing to move the needle forward in my life to kind of, you know, go from 4 to 5 or from 7 to 8 kind of thing. And that's helpful. And then keep it up so you see it, because, you know, visually, you know, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
Right.
And these are all little things that I've learned and I try to teach people. And, you know, just it's, yes.
So is your definition of success a balanced wheel?
Oh, okay. I didn't answer the question.
It sounds to me like having balance in the 10
you know,
life
my
domains is your
definition of success is being aware of where you are and moving forward, always moving forward, but
So it's
doing the little
awareness.
things to help you be aware and visually see, you know, the balance, if you will, in your life. So yeah, that's my long-winded definition.
No, but thank you for sharing that, because that's actually an excellent tool and resource for everybody out there. Go out there and download this life domain, because I think that's an excellent answer. Ivy, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Anybody want to get a hold of Ivy? Her link tree is right there underneath the screen. Get a hold of her. She does life coaching, right? She does a lot of different things. And as you can see, she is just a phenomenal, phenomenal woman.
Are we done?
We are done.
Aww.
And to my viewers, I will see you next time.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gabrielle Morales, and I am a recruitment coordinator for Be The Match. My journey with Be The Match actually began when I was only 9 years old. At that point, my 7-month-old baby sister was diagnosed with an extremely rare form of leukemia. Through the Be The Match registry, we were able to find a matching donor for my sister. And although a few months later, we lost her, her cancer was cured. Our family is so thankful for the additional months that we had with my sister. And ever since then, I've made a promise to myself to dedicate my life to helping children just like Isabella and helping families like ours by continuing her legacy. Hence why I now work for Be The Match. I love what I do so much, and I'm able to spread awareness about the huge need for more donors on the registry, especially those of diverse backgrounds. There is currently a huge disparity within the registry for minority patients, and we need your help. It is so simple to save a life and to be put on the registry. You can visit izzyslegacy.com or text Izzy's Legacy to the number 61474 to start the registration process to be on the Be The Match registry, to hopefully be a life-saving match for a searching patient in need.